The Zanari, an ancient and advanced species, looked down at Earth with a mix of curiosity and indifference. They had cataloged countless civilizations across the stars, most of which either matched their intellectual prowess or fell far behind. Earth was one of the latter, a planet teeming with life, but dominated by a species that seemed, to the Zanari, oddly whimsical. Their observations of humans were based on intercepted transmissions and brief scans of surface-level activity. What they found was baffling: endless images of humans laughing, playing, and engaging in seemingly pointless activities. There were videos of humans doting on smaller creatures they called pets, engaging in strange rituals that involved colorful explosions in the sky, and creating stories full of exaggerated emotions. To the Zanari, it all seemed absurdly inefficient, but undeniably endearing. Commander Zyrith stared at the projection before him, his multi-lensed eyes narrowing in disbelief. "Are these behaviors meant to serve a purpose?" he asked. Scout Tynn, standing beside him, chirped enthusiastically. "Perhaps their purpose is joy, Commander. Look at this one." He enlarged an image of a human child chasing bubbles in a park, their face lit with unrestrained delight. "Do you not see how delightful they are?" Zyrith's tendrils twitched in irritation. Delightful? They are unstructured, illogical. Their entire existence seems predicated on chaos and sentimentality. "Precisely why they are fascinating," Tynn replied. "Their emotional expressions seem limitless. Fear, love, amusement, sometimes all in rapid succession. They are unlike anything we've encountered before." The Zanari prided themselves on their logic and efficiency. Their culture had long since eliminated frivolities like laughter or entertainment. They solved problems, expanded their reach, and cataloged the universe with cold precision. To them, humans were an anomaly, a species that should have fallen prey to its own chaotic tendencies, but instead thrived. As the ship descended closer to Earth's surface, the Zanari focused on a rural area, quiet and seemingly untouched by the larger technological advancements of the planet. It was a calculated decision: avoid densely populated regions and minimize the chance of panic. Through the ship's sensors, they observed a small gathering of humans. The humans appeared to be engaging in what the Zanari interpreted as recreational bonding. Some were tossing a spherical object back and forth while others watched, cheering and laughing. The energy was palpable even through the Zanari's sterile screens. "What are they doing?" Zyrith asked, his voice tinged with a rare hint of curiosity. Tynn tilted his head, studying the scene. "It appears to be a structured form of play, perhaps a test of coordination and reflexes. But look, they are not doing it for survival. They are enjoying themselves." Zyrith scoffed. "Enjoyment does not build civilizations, does it not?" Tynn countered. "Perhaps their emotional connections are the foundation of their strength." A smaller human, no older than a few cycles by their standards, caught their attention. The child, oblivious to the larger activity, was focused on drawing patterns in the dirt with a stick. Occasionally, they would pause, look up at the adults, and giggle as if privy to some grand secret. Tynn leaned closer to the screen. "Commander, observe how even their smallest members engage in creation. Their minds are always at work, even in play." Zyrith remained silent, his attention reluctantly drawn to the child. He couldn't deny there was something compelling about the scene. The simplicity of their joy was alien to him, yet it lingered in his thoughts. A new feed popped up, showing a human interacting with a canine. The creature wagged its tail furiously as the human scratched behind its ears. The human's face lit up with genuine affection, and the Zanari couldn't ignore the reciprocal bond between the two. "They form alliances with lesser species," Tynn remarked. "Not out of necessity, but out of mutual affection." "Fascinating," Zyrith muttered. "A waste of resources." "Perhaps," Tynn admitted. "But it creates something we do not possess. Connection." The commander's irritation grew. "Connection does not conquer galaxies?" Tynn smiled, or at least the Zanari equivalent of a smile, a subtle shift in his facial tendrils. "Perhaps they are not interested in conquest." For the next several rotations, the Zanari continued their silent observation. They watched humans interact, create, and bond, each moment reinforcing their initial conclusion. Humans were harmless, almost childlike in their innocence. They lacked the cold efficiency of the Zanari or the predatory aggression of other species the Zanari had encountered. Tynn was increasingly enamored with their subjects. He compiled a report filled with examples of human creativity and affection. He included images of humans comforting one another, inventing new games, and even singing to themselves while completing mundane tasks. "They are unique," he declared. Xyrath, though skeptical, couldn't entirely dismiss the evidence. The humans were undeniably unique. But as he watched a group of them gather around a fire, laughing and telling stories, he felt a twinge of unease. Their simplicity was deceptive. There was something beneath the surface, something he couldn't yet define. And so, the Zanari prepared for their next step, direct contact. Tynn was ecstatic, eager to meet the creatures he found so fascinating. Xyrath, however, remained cautious. "They may seem harmless," he warned, "but appearances can be deceiving." Tynn dismissed the comment with a wave. "Commander, they are no threat to us. They are adorable." As the ship descended further, Xyrath couldn't shake the lingering feeling in his core. The humans were unlike anything he'd ever encountered, and he suspected they were far more complex than they appeared. But for now, he kept his doubts to himself. The Zanari found themselves unexpectedly drawn into the rhythms of human life. After landing in a quiet area, they observed the humans more closely, interacting with one individual in particular, a farmer who lived near the edge of a small settlement. This human, though seemingly ordinary, represented everything the Zanari had come to misunderstand about humanity. The farmer had initially been startled by their appearance, but quickly overcame his fear. Instead of reacting with hostility, he had displayed curiosity. He invited them to his home, offering food and drink, though the Zanari required neither. What intrigued the Zanari most was not his lack of fear, but the simplicity of his gestures. They interpreted it as kindness, but to the farmer, it was just habit, a deeply ingrained tradition of hospitality. As the Zanari spent more time observing the farmer, they began to learn more about humanity's past. The farmer shared pieces of his life in casual conversation, unaware of the extent to which his words were being analyzed. He spoke of his struggles, failed crops, harsh winters, and the constant effort it took to maintain his land. Yet, despite the hardships, he spoke with a quiet optimism, as if such struggles were simply part of life. The Zanari found this puzzling. In their own culture, failure was unacceptable. Their species had perfected survival through rigid control and unyielding efficiency. For humans, however, failure seemed to be an integral part of growth. The farmer spoke of lessons learned through mistakes, of innovations born out of necessity, and of a deep pride in overcoming obstacles. The Zanari were particularly fascinated when the farmer brought them into his small workshop. It was cluttered and chaotic, the opposite of their own pristine and orderly systems. Yet in that clutter, they saw ingenuity. Tools that had been repurposed, old machinery given new life, and devices cobbled together from scraps, all spoke to a species that thrived on adaptability. One device in particular caught their attention, an old tractor the farmer had repaired countless times. It was primitive by Zanari standards, but its simplicity belied its brilliance. The farmer explained how he had replaced parts, reworked systems, and even invented makeshift solutions when he couldn't afford proper repairs. Scout Tynn marveled at the ingenuity. "Your technology is crude," he admitted, "but your resourcefulness is remarkable." The farmer laughed. "Crude or not, it gets the job done. That's all that matters." The Zanari continued to question him, often in subtle ways. They asked about his family, his neighbors, and the community he lived in. Through his stories, they learned of humanity's interdependence, of how humans leaned on one another in times of need. The farmer spoke of neighbors sharing tools, helping rebuild homes after storms, and coming together during celebrations. What stood out most was how humans seemed to balance individuality with community. Each person had their own goals, dreams, and ideas, yet they willingly sacrificed for the greater good when necessary. This was something the Zanari couldn't comprehend. In their culture, individuals existed solely for the benefit of the collective, with no room for personal ambition or emotional connections. Yet, as they listened to the farmer, they began to see the strength in this duality. Humans weren't bound by a single purpose. Their diversity of thought and experience allowed them to adapt to almost any situation. They were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was their greatest asset. At one point, the farmer brought out a photo album, showing images of his family. There were pictures of weddings, birthdays, and holidays, each one filled with smiles and laughter. The Zanari had seen such expressions before in their observations, but hearing the farmer describe the moments behind them gave the images new depth. "This was my daughter's graduation," he said, pointing to a picture of a young woman in a cap and gown. "She worked so hard for it. Made me proud." The Zanari didn't understand pride as an emotion, but they could sense the weight it carried for the farmer. It wasn't just about the achievement. It was about the effort, the journey, and the connection he felt to his daughter. As they continued their study, the Zanari began to uncover a darker side of humanity. The farmer, without realizing it, revealed glimpses of humanity's capacity for destruction. He spoke of wars that had shaped nations, of conflicts fought over resources, beliefs, and power. "War is a terrible thing," the farmer admitted, "but sometimes it's necessary. When something you love is threatened, you fight for it." That statement lingered in the minds of the Zanari. They had always viewed war as a failure of diplomacy or logic, but for humans, it seemed to be tied to their very essence. They fought not out of greed or ambition, but out of love and the need to protect what they held dear. The contradictions were overwhelming. Humanity was a species capable of immense kindness and creativity, yet equally capable of violence and destruction. The Zanari struggled to reconcile these opposing traits. Were humans a danger or a marvel? Harmless or formidable? By the end of their time with the farmer, the Zanari had more questions than answers. They had come to Earth expecting to find a quaint, unremarkable species. Instead, they had found a paradox, a species whose greatest strength lay in its contradictions. As they prepared to leave the farm, the farmer handed them a small, hand-carved trinket. It was a simple piece of wood shaped into a heart. "A little gift," he said with a smile. Tyn studied the object, his appendages curling around it carefully. "Why would you give this to us?" "Because you're my guests," the farmer replied. "And because it's what we do." The Zanari left the farm with a deeper understanding of humanity, but also with a sense of unease. Humans were not the simple, harmless creatures they had first assumed. Beneath their smiles and laughter lay a complexity that was both beautiful and terrifying. They were a species defined by contrasts, and the Zanari couldn't help but wonder what those contrasts might mean for the future. The Zanari had gathered all their data, but something still felt incomplete. They had observed human ingenuity, emotional depth, and their contradictions, but what they hadn't fully understood was humanity's capacity for unity in the face of the unknown. That would soon change. Their next point of contact occurred when a technical mishap forced their ship into a vulnerable position. One of their energy modules malfunctioned, leaving the vessel partially visible to the human population. A small group of humans from the nearby settlement spotted the shimmering distortion in the sky and, instead of reacting with fear, began to investigate. Among them was the farmer, who had noticed unusual activity in the fields near his property. When he arrived at the site of the Zanari ship, he saw the faint outline of the craft, partially cloaked but emitting faint pulses of light. Instead of running or alerting the authorities, he approached cautiously. Inside the ship, Scout Tyn monitored the situation with growing alarm. "They've discovered us," he said, his tendrils twitching nervously. Commander Zyrith remained calm. "Let them approach. This is an opportunity to observe their behavior when confronted with the unfamiliar." The farmer hesitated briefly before placing a hand on the ship's surface. It was warm to the touch, humming faintly with energy. He spoke softly, as if addressing a skittish animal. "I don't know what you are or why you're here, but if you need help, I'll do what I can." The Zanari were taken aback. They had expected fear or hostility, not an immediate offer of assistance. Through a carefully calibrated projection, they revealed themselves to the farmer, their shimmering forms appearing just beyond the ship's hull. The farmer's reaction was one of awe rather than fear. He asked no probing questions about their origins or intentions. Instead, he simply asked, "What do you need?" This directness caught Xyrath off guard. "Why do you offer help so freely?" he asked. The farmer shrugged. "It's what we do. You're in trouble, and I figure you'd do the same if the roles were reversed." The Zanari hesitated to accept the offer but ultimately allowed the humans to assist. What followed was an unexpected display of human collaboration. The farmer enlisted the help of others in the community, all of whom worked together to provide tools and materials that might aid in the repair of the Zanari ship. The humans had no understanding of the alien technology, yet they approached the problem with relentless determination. They asked questions, offered suggestions, and improvised solutions where none seemed possible. To the Zanari, it was chaotic and inefficient, yet progress was undeniable. What struck the Zanari most was the way humans interacted with one another during the process. There were disagreements and moments of frustration, but they were quickly resolved. Laughter punctuated their efforts, even in the face of challenges. They shared stories and jokes, turning the task into a communal experience. At one point, a young human arrived with a plate of food, insisting that everyone take a break to eat. The Zanari watched in astonishment as the humans sat together, sharing the simple meal and exchanging light-hearted banter. For the Zanari, such behavior was inconceivable. They worked tirelessly until a task was complete, with no time wasted on socializing. Yet here were the humans, pausing their work to strengthen their bonds. Tynn couldn't contain his admiration. "Commander, their ability to unite under pressure is extraordinary. They take something as simple as a meal and turn it into a reinforcement of their connection." Xyrath, though reluctant to admit it, couldn't deny the truth in Tynn's words. "It is unconventional but effective." As the repairs neared completion, an unexpected event tested the humans' resolve. A storm rolled in, bringing torrential rain and fierce winds. The humans could have retreated to safety, leaving the Zanari to their fate, but they did not. Instead, they worked harder, shielding one another from the elements and improvising solutions to protect the ship from further damage. The Zanari were stunned by their resilience. Despite the harsh conditions, the humans displayed no signs of giving up. They encouraged one another, their voices cutting through the roar of the storm. It was as if their determination grew stronger with each obstacle. By the time the storm passed, the repairs were complete. The Zanari ship was fully operational once more, thanks in no small part to the humans' efforts. As the humans gathered their tools and prepared to leave, the farmer approached the Zanari projection one last time. "I don't know why you're here," he said, "but I hope you've seen what we're capable of. We're not perfect, but we try. And when it comes down to it, we look out for each other. That's what matters." The Zanari said little in response, but as they ascended into the sky, they couldn't help but reflect on the experience. Humanity's strength wasn't in their technology or their intellect. It was in their unity, their ability to adapt, and their unwavering determination. For the first time, Xyrath felt a hint of respect for the species he had once dismissed. They were chaotic, yes, but there was an undeniable brilliance in their chaos. It was a strength the Zanari could neither replicate nor fully understand, and it left them both in awe and deeply unsettled. As the Zanari ship disappeared into the cosmos, the crew fell into an uncharacteristic silence. Their study of humanity had concluded, but the conclusions themselves were far from simple. What they had observed on Earth challenged the very foundation of their understanding of sentient life. In the quiet of the command chamber, Commander Xyrath reviewed the final logs. The humans, despite their primitive tools and seemingly chaotic ways, had displayed a resilience and unity unmatched by any other species the Zanari had encountered. They were driven not by flawless systems or genetic programming, but by something far less tangible, an innate determination to overcome, to protect, and to connect. Scout Tynn finally broke the silence. Commander, are we to classify them as a threat? Xyrath hesitated, his tendrils curling in contemplation. Not in the traditional sense, he replied. Their capacity for destruction is undeniable, but it is not mindless. It is rooted in their passions, in their love, their fear, their hope. They are as dangerous as they are compassionate. That is a complexity we have not encountered before. The data they had gathered revealed more than just human behavior. It exposed a stark contrast to their own species. The Zanari had achieved perfection in their systems and their logic, but in doing so, they had sacrificed individuality, emotion, and unpredictability. Humanity, by contrast, thrived on these very traits. Tynn reflected on their time with the farmer. They risked everything for us, Commander, without knowing who or what we were. They didn't hesitate. That generosity is something we cannot replicate. Generosity, Xyrath repeated, testing the word. It is both their strength and their vulnerability. They give so freely, even when it places them at risk. It is irrational. It is also remarkable, Tynn added. The crew deliberated on what they had seen, the adaptability of the farmer, the ingenuity of the humans who worked together under impossible circumstances, and the unyielding bonds that carried them through their struggles. Each story, each observation, painted a picture of a species that defied categorization. What troubled Xyrath most was the realization that humanity's greatest strength might also be its greatest danger. Their emotions, their passions, their unpredictability, they allowed them to achieve the impossible, but they also made them volatile. The humans' capacity for unity in the face of adversity was matched only by their potential for division in times of peace. As the Zanari ship traveled farther from Earth, Xyrath addressed the crew. We cannot classify humanity as a threat, nor can we dismiss them as harmless. They are both. They are neither. They are unlike anything we have encountered before. Tynn pressed further. What does that mean for us? For the Zanaris? Xyrath considered the question carefully. It means we must learn from them. Humanity's contradictions are not a flaw, they are the source of their strength. We have achieved perfection, but in doing so, we have stagnated. They, in their imperfection, continue to evolve. The crew absorbed the commander's words, their unease growing. For a species that prided itself on logic and order, the idea of embracing chaos was unsettling. Yet, they couldn't deny the truth in Xyrath's analysis. Humanity's success was rooted in its unpredictability, and if the Zanari were to adapt to the ever-changing galaxy, they would need to embrace some of that same unpredictability. Tynn voiced a lingering concern. Do you believe they will seek to expand? To conquer? Xyrath shook his head. Their motivations are not so straightforward. They do not act purely out of self-interest. They fight when they must, protect when they can, and create bonds that extend beyond logic. It is not conquest they seek, but connection. That is what makes them both a potential ally and a danger. They will not be satisfied with isolation. They will reach out as they always have, and in doing so, they will reshape the galaxy. The thought was both inspiring and terrifying. Humanity's presence in the galaxy would not go unnoticed. Other species, less understanding than the Zanari, might see their unpredictability as a threat. Wars could be sparked, alliances forged, and entire civilizations changed by their mere existence. But the Zanari had seen something that others might overlook, humanity's potential to bring not just chaos but growth. Their creativity, their resilience, their capacity to care even for those they did not know, all of it pointed to a species that could lead, not through dominance, but through inspiration. As the ship continued its journey, Tynn spoke once more. Do you believe they will survive the challenges ahead? Xyrath's response was uncharacteristically confident. If there is one thing I have learned about humanity, it is that they do not merely survive. They endure. They adapt. And above all, they persist. Their imperfections are their greatest asset, and their capacity for hope is unmatched. They will find a way, as they always have. The Zanari ship disappeared into the void, carrying with it a newfound understanding of humanity. They had come to Earth expecting to find a primitive, inconsequential species. Instead, they had discovered a force of nature, one that was equal parts beauty and danger, chaos and order. And as the humans continued their lives, unaware of the impact they had made, the Zanari knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity was not just a species, they were a story. A story of contradictions, of struggles, of triumphs. And it was a story that had only just begun.